Welcome to Shitcoin TV, everyone. On this week's show, we have Alan Piscitello, VP of Product at Blockstream. Thanks for joining us on the show, Alan.
Thanks for having me on, Blake.
And as always, we have CEO of Shitcoin.com, Andreas Brecken.
Hello.
So, everyone, as you all know, Blockstream have a lot going on, and I'm sure Alan has a ton of different stuff on the go at this very point in time. But on this episode, we really wanted to drill down on Liquid. So a lot of people are talking about it, and I'm sure there are a lot of you out there, and I know there are a lot of you out there that don't quite understand it yet, haven't worked it out. So yeah, this is your chance to learn and hear about why it's useful today and how it's going to be useful for you in the future. So to kick us off, Alan, can you just give us a bit of a kind of overview? What is Liquid?
Yeah, so Liquid is a sidechain of Bitcoin designed for trading and settlement. So what this is helpful with is if you're moving money between exchanges, you can do it very quickly and very privately, as well as issue assets that can be anything from stable coins to tokenized shitcoins to security tokens. All these different types of assets can move on the platform and be traded with each other. So we offer the software to this to different exchanges to operate, and should make the trading process a lot smoother.
And but anybody can use this.
Absolutely. So anyone can fire up a node and use Liquid in just about every way that the Federation can. And there's some subtle differences of what the general public can do versus the regular user. But as far as the regular user is concerned, they can convert Bitcoin in, they can trade it along the platform, they can issue assets. Andreas was doing this before he was involved in Liquid in any way, was able to create assets and handle the peg. So it's something anyone can use. And then, of course, the only thing that's restricted is being able to convert Bitcoin back to the main chain. And that's just something that has to be done through through the Federation itself. And that's something that we want to obviously open up to be more inclusive in the future and more permissionless, just will take some security enhancements that we need to build.
Or this is kind of a fun fact, but the service I run called SideShift was invented to transfer assets between side chains and main chains. So you can just pay somebody to remove it for you, basically.
Absolutely. So as long as he has the liquidity, he can do it.
Exactly.
And also then, so there's this Liquid Federation, right? So what is that, and how does it play a part in the Liquid ecosystem?
Yeah, so Liquid is a federated sidechain. So this means rather than having something like miners that you'd have in Bitcoin or any altcoins or things like drive chains, you have a federated set of block signers. And so that means that they have they're controlling the blocks that are created in the network. They're choosing what transactions go in and what don't, as well as managing a Bitcoin wallet, which represents the underlying Bitcoin asset that is the Liquid Bitcoin. So this federation, because it's not mined, there's no luck or randomness in being able to create a block. It's simply every minute there's a block. And that gives you a lot of power and flexibility. With that, you have a security trade-off, right? With mining, you have to provably burn some energy to do that, and that takes a cost to do. With the Federation itself, there's no cost in creating a signature other than the very minor computing power to do that. And so it's secured through economic incentives of the Federation itself needing to use the chain, and that there's hardware involved as well that follows the rules of whether or not it will sign a block that rewrites history or not. So there is some limitations based on the hardware.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. And yeah, so I was reading more into it, just how it works with the federated members as well, right? So in order for a transaction to go through on Liquid, it needs to be approved by what proportion of the members?
Yes. So every block needs 11 out of the 15. There's 15 functionaries, and currently that number will go up next year. And it needs 11 of them to be able to sign a block to say it's valid. As long as more than 1/3 of them are honest, you're not going to end up with a divergence.
And the signing is done by physical boxes that you guys produce, but that these guys are hosting.
That's correct. So there's a
So if
server that everyone.
so if one is tampered with or something, then it would sign something that somebody else wouldn't, or the other way around.
Correct. So if something signed something that was illegal, you know, in the rules, everyone else would see it, and as long as 5 of them refused to sign it, you would end up with it not making it into the chain. So an example, you know, if I tried to say that there was liquid Bitcoin pegged into the network, and it never actually was in the Bitcoin side, as long as 5 of the functionaries are watching for that, that block will never actually make it into the liquid blockchain.
Welcome to Shitcoin, the rapid coin swap.
And one thing that isn't brought up a lot is there's quite a bit of there's some privacy functions of Liquid, like confidential assets and so on. How does that work? And like jumping a little ahead here, but say I have USDT on Liquid, how would like my privacy be different than if I had it on Ethereum ERC20? And I mean, say I'm just moving between exchanges, like I'm some kind of trader or.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you send a transaction in Liquid, it's very similar to a Bitcoin transaction. There's inputs and outputs almost exactly the same way. The one big difference that you also have an ASC type with every in and every output. So whether you're sending Bitcoin or USDT or Liquid BCH or whatever else you have in here, it all looks, you know, it's part of the transaction. But what you do something is you can do something called blinding it. And this is not mandatory, but it is strongly recommended on the chain to increase you know, everyone's privacy. Is you actually, when you send the transaction, you blind the amounts and the asset type. You know, if you look at a block explorer, you're not going to learn very much about that. Tether, no one would even know that I'm sending Tether from the outside world, and I could be sending, you know, a penny, or I could be sending them $1 million, and no one would know. The only thing that they would know is basically like with Tether, there's a when they issue it, you know how much has been issued. So it's obviously less than that much, but that's but I don't know it's Tether. It could be Tether, it could be Bitcoin, it could be a token I created that's completely worthless. It's all completely hidden, and this is really important for trading applications. So you should compare to Ethereum. So there's many different Twitter accounts that monitor movements of funds. There's whale alerts. So, you know, some trader moved, you know, $50 million from Bitfinex to Huobi or something, and they know which exchange it is because they watch the addresses and they watch them move around, and this reveals a lot of information to the trade, you know, general public. Meanwhile, you're waiting for confirmations. Something with Ethereum, you're going to wait for, you know, at least several minutes worth of confirmations. I think they recommend like 25 blocks or something. I'm not the Ethereum expert, so maybe you know more about how many confirmations
multiplied by something. I mean, I've heard rumors that there have been 100 block reorgs, so it's kind of up to the exchange.
Yeah. So anyways, you're waiting there. Meanwhile, everyone knows you just sent a ton of Tether to an exchange. Well, what are you going to do with it? Probably buy something. And meanwhile, the market's buying in anticipation of this, and now you have to pay a higher price.
Yeah.
So it's you know, it's kind of asking. Maybe you send money just to fool someone, and then you actually are dumping. But you know, with Liquid, it just hides it. And the other kind of privacy you get out of it is, you know, if I'm trading with Andreas, let's just say I'm sending him some Tether, and you know, if I'm doing it with Ethereum and I had, like, he can see my balance. Everything's balance based in Ethereum. So if I, you know, had $1 million worth of Tether, he's like, oh, that guy's kind of loaded. Maybe I can go knock him off and invite him out for drinks and beat him over the head and steal his Tether. Like, whereas with Liquid, you know, all he knows is what I sent him and has no idea what I actually have. So that's another way to protect your privacy.
Yeah, gotcha. Because even if I try to analyze your wallet, with clustering and so on, if the amounts that were sent to you and the asset types were blinded, then I just know you have like something.
Exactly. And it could be a worthless token, and it could be, you know, actual tokens representing gold. Like you don't know the difference between any of it.
Mm.
You know, there's some clustering. You can do things like it's not like perfectly private where everything's hidden, because when I peg something into my wallet, there's a Bitcoin transaction, and there's no point in blinding that, because it's, you know, clearly I pegged in half a Bitcoin. Okay, well, one of these outputs is half a Bitcoin, but I don't know which one. So the more you use it, the more you spend it, the more you mix it up, the harder it becomes to tell what you actually still have. But you might have been able to know some information. So like, you always know that there's one input that's a liquid Bitcoin because it's paying fees. So that's like, you can always deduce something. So it's not like a catch-all. Like if you're trying to do something and you want to preserve your privacy, you still have to pay attention and be careful, but it certainly gives you a lot of tools at your disposal.
Awesome. And I guess now we're talking about all, you know, these different things on Liquid. So that's something we definitely wanted to touch upon, like issuing assets. So USDT came out not too long ago, right? It was only a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it was earlier this year.
Yeah. So in terms of issuing assets on Liquid, why is that useful, and what is currently available on Liquid? I know Andreas probably has an answer for that too.
Yeah, so we have a couple of there's been several thousand assets that have been issued on Liquid. Now, whether or not any of them are worth anything, that's for the market to decide. Some of the big ones that we did have, you know, we do have issued. You know, USDT is probably the next biggest token that we have, other than Liquid Bitcoin. Actually, I think there's probably more value in Liquid USDT on Liquid than Bitcoin, so it might actually be number one
That's a
right
good
now.
point.
So yeah, it's probably the most valuable asset on Liquid right now is USDT. That's really useful. The main reason why you want to have these assets, it is a secure issuance platform. It does provide that privacy. So things like security tokens, you may not want to reveal who owns them or how much, except to the actual issuer themselves. And that's something where you can have that selective privacy, where you can share blinding information with the issuer as needed, and be able to comply with any regulation you might have, but still be private, so that, you know, no one else knows what's going on. So that's the other part. What that ties into as well is you can do something with a single transaction atomic swaps. So we've had cross-chain atomic swaps since the first altcoin was created. And basically the idea of that is you lock up some funds and you lock up funds in the other chain, and then through crypto magic you can swap the funds, and if the other party has an act in time, you just wait for a timeout and get your money back.
It's the
Liquid simplifies that a lot.
it's the Tier Nolan protocol, right? From the Bitcoin Wiki,
Exactly.
2013.
It's been around a while, so, you know, people have been doing this, but it is a somewhat messy process, and if your trading partner doesn't cooperate, you basically are locked out of your funds for however long you set up that period to be. With Liquid, it's a lot simpler. I can tie, you know, let's say I wanted to trade USDT with Bitcoin with Andreas, and I didn't trust him, so I don't want to use SideShift because I don't trust him for whatever reason. I can set up a transaction where I have, you know, my Liquid Bitcoin, and he has his USDT, as both inputs in the same transaction. We swap the outputs, so we each get it. And the worst that happens is, you know, the transaction doesn't happen because he double spends. And this is because we have the 1 minute settlement. There's very little chance. You know, there's also like the free option that can exist with these types of trades as well, because you can have something where one person could sign it and wait to see if the price goes up or down. With this, you're only, you know, really out of it for a minute. So it's, you know, we've seen some big swings in crypto prices, but usually in a minute you're pretty safe. So you know, the worst case, someone backs out of a trade after 1 minute. That's a pretty good thing to have. So it's a good way to have trustless trades there.
Great. And how difficult is it to actually issue an asset on Liquid? Is it literally, could anyone do it, or do you need some sort of technical knowledge to get it going?
Yes. So if you can run a full node, I'd say you can issue an asset. It's pretty straightforward. So basically you download the Liquid node. It's called, the software is called Elements. That's our general purpose blockchain software that is compatible with Liquid. You load it up, you get some Liquid Bitcoin into the system, so you can either send some Bitcoin to an address you control so you can actually start using it. And then you just call a single command called issue asset and just decide the parameters of issuance. How much do I want to create? Do I want to create more in the future? And do I want to do it privately? Or do I want to do it in the open? You do that, and the transaction itself is broadcast and evidence. So it's incredibly simple. When, once you have the software, you're in the system. You don't have to write a smart contract. You don't have to follow a standard. It's in there, and everyone who has a Liquid wallet, like Green or just a Liquid full node, is able to now receive this asset. So it's incredibly simple.
Yeah, the Green wallet is a phone wallet that actually supports Liquid. I know because I've used it. You can get it for Android and iOS, right?
That's right, and desktop coming soon. So,
Awesome.
and there's gonna be a lot of other additions for Green coming up. Can't spoil too much, but probably in the next few weeks you'll see some other enhancements that will be really exciting for traders on Liquid.
Very cool. And I had, it's always in our nature at Shitcoin TV to kind of think ahead and think what these things could be used for in the future. So, I mean, with that in mind, yeah, what sort of interesting stuff do you see Liquid being used for in the future, and how do you see it improving what we have today?
Yeah, so one of the big things I'm excited about in the future is the idea of Lightning on Liquid. So, Blockstream works on a lot of different things, as you mentioned. We work on Lightning, we work on Green, we work on Liquid, we work on satellite, we work on mining. All this stuff ties into Liquid. This is all related. This is all tied to the same story. For a while, we kind of got accused of just working on all these different side projects. And simplicity, that's the other one that's kind of coming in here. So that's our smart contracting language. So all this is tied together. So Lightning is something that's really exciting. Being able to tie it to assets. We already did a demo. We already did it. It's in C Lightning where you can send Liquid Bitcoin on Lightning in there. That's not really that much more interesting than regular Lightning. You start adding that to assets. Well, now you have a true platform for payments of any asset, such as stablecoins. So if you want to pay Tether, micropayments, you can do that, and that's something that's really exciting coming up. And then I guess the other big thing that's not there yet, but we'll start to be leaking into Liquid soon is simplicity. So, we saw smart contracts that were built right now. They're built right now to be very, very easy to write, but very, very hard to be correct. So we've seen many losses of the, not just millions of dollars, but hundreds of millions of dollars, where a smart contract looked like it was smart, and it turns out there was flaws to it, and people were able to exploit it. The first major one we saw here ended up with a split in Ethereum to try to correct the problem. I forget what they called it, an irregular state change, or as we call it, a rollback. And then the second one was the parity problem with the multi-signature. So it's hard to get right. It was designed to be written so that JavaScript developers can create smart contracts, and you end up with that level of security. And that's for any kind of financial instrument that's going to be taken seriously. I don't think that's the right path. So you want to have something that is rock solid and does exactly what it's supposed to do, and you can prove it does. Similar to how jet aircrafts are made and tested to make sure that if you're going to make a new jet, you want to make sure it flies and it doesn't crash. We think that financial products need to have that level of security. So simplicity lets you write a smart contract that can be formally verified that it's doing exactly what it says it's doing. It's using exactly no more than so much memory and no more than so much CPU cycles to get it to execute, and you can prove it. So it's a slower path. It will be harder to write these programs than the other ones, but they're going to be a lot more secure. And so this is something where when the ecosystem grows up, it isn't just doing crypto kitties, and it's actually doing real options contracts or settlement of stock for billions of dollars. You're going to want to make sure it works.
Yeah, this it's so weird. Ever since people started talking about smart contracts, I guess Ethereum white paper times, I kept asking why aren't we using the same programming languages for the smart contracts that they're using for the module of the space rocket or the lunar lander that chooses like the orbital paths and stuff, like, because I know they exist, so why aren't we using that? Why are we using Vitalik's version of JavaScript?
Yeah, it was a, we'll just say, I mean, I'll give them credit. It was a successful platform for onboarding a lot of developers. They have more developers than users, so it was successful there. I think most of these dApps, there's a lot of people that were able to do a lot with them. The question is, one, are they useful, and two, are they secure? So I think that's we've limited this.
You just made me think now. Like I'm actually an Ethereum developer and not a user.
Well, you're kind of a user.
I'm neither. So, so I mean,
yeah, that's great.
Become an early adopter. Siteship.ai.
Good.
Now that we mentioned Ethereum, are we going to talk about maybe putting Ethereum on Liquid, maybe Bitcoin Cash on Liquid, maybe Doge?
I want them all. Let's put them all on Liquid. This is something where it could be very useful, right? So you have to look at what are these things being used for, and there's different varying ones. Like Ethereum's being used for some applications. The people are writing, DAI exists, and people are writing smart contracts to do things on it. There may be flaws or whatever with it. There's some cases where it's being used, and then there's a lot of cases where a lot of these tokens exist solely to speculate on. And pretty much the only use case of when you see their on-chain traffic is for sending one exchange to another exchange. And this is a nightmare for exchanges, having to maintain all of these different clients that sometimes fall out of date. Sometimes, they're not keeping up with the Bitcoin vulnerabilities that get patched. They're not keeping up with the performance updates. And you end up having like really poorly maintained software, and you're reliant on it, and it goes down. Some of the software is very bulky and very painful to run. Like the Ethereum nodes are pretty much impossible to run.
Mm-hmm.
I know several people have brought that up as like a major pain point of the exchange.
It
so
is.
If you can just basically isolate all these coins, put them in cold storage somewhere. Let's create a liquid token for each of them. And then the exchanges can just trade those around. And then occasionally, someone who's managing the side chain swaps out can just swap in and out and convert these tokens back. So for the vast majority of trades, if you're just speculating and trading on them, like why do they need to be moving on their own blockchain? There's no reason for it.
But I think what's interesting on this one is so the security model is if we're going to have just to troll here, if we're going to have Bitcoin Cash on Liquid, then what is the security like for me having it on Liquid as a holder as opposed to having the Bitcoin Cash? Because I'm not trusting just say Alan, right?
Exactly. So there is an issuer of these tokens. So we're assuming that these tokens that are represented are actually in some wallet somewhere, just like the Bitcoin that's underlying all the liquid Bitcoin is in some wallet controlled by the Federation. Now, we're not going to ever add consensus critical code where it's dependent on these other blockchains. We've had requests for it. Can we have an official peg of Ethereum or official peg of Litecoin? And we looked like how many blockchains could we support and do that, and it was like 2 or 3 that we felt good, and people are going to want more than that. So how you do it is you have one issuer that you really trust, or maybe you have, like, if it's Tron, like you could just have Justin Sun hold it for you, like it's all the same anyways. Or Binance Coin, have like CZ hold it, and then he issues a liquid Binance Coin, like you could do that, and it's the same trust model. Or you could have a large group of people, maybe a set of exchanges that want to support this. They could get together and just make a big multi-signature wallet of Ethereum or Litecoin or BCH or whatever you want, and it just goes off and stays there. And when people want to cash it out, as long as the super majority of them agree, you can convert it in and out. And then the security model of it at that point is the Liquid Federation going to allow invalid transactions on there or rewrite history? and that's something that's easily detectable. So if you did detect it, like worst cases, you just like shut down like those exchanges that are, you know, securing the, let's just say it's Litecoin. They just say, oh, well, Liquid Network did something it wasn't supposed to. We're just going to stop. And anyone who had those tokens can prove to us they have them, and we'll just like cash them out. So it's a lot. You know, you're trusting that group that's holding it or individual, and you can have different sets of, you know, like it doesn't have to be like, there could be a Andreas version of Litecoin, and there could be like Charlie Lee's has a peg. It doesn't matter. Like we've even had discussions with people that they want to do a Bitcoin peg into Liquid,
Yeah, why not?
but not be not be the same federation that's holding it. Like maybe you don't trust the federation. Okay, you don't have to. Like let's find, you know, a bunch of other people that would hold that peg and maintain it. So again, it's like it's almost like Tether, but for altcoins, right? So like Tether is basically representing dollars in a bank account that's held by someone that you trust, and you can pass these things around. Maybe, and it's easier with you know, cryptocurrencies because you can actually go and check, you know, the supply actually match. I can't go check in Tether's bank account if it makes sure it matches or not. That's a lot harder to do. But I can prove that there is the Litecoin there, there's the Ethereum there, there's the BCH there, and they've only issued what they've said they have. So it's a lot easier to kind of trust they have the money.
Very cool. Very cool.
So bring them all on. Bring them all on. We're not. You know, anyone can do it, and maybe people already have. But you can tokenize anything.
Shift with side shift AI. Good job.
So Alan, just to wrap this one up, where can we keep up with you online and everything Liquid and Blockstream?
Yeah, so online, blockstream.com, Twitter, we have at Blockstream, all the latest updates from Blockstream, Liquid or not, is being published there. So that's, I'd say Twitter's probably the best bet. We have a Telegram group for Liquid, so it's a Liquid community if you search for that. Also, there's a Blockstream Green community as well if you're looking at the wallets. So, and we have I'd say those are probably the best places to reach out and get help if you're trying to develop or trying to use it. We're happy to help you out there. And of course, GitHub on Blockstream and Elements Project are the two areas we like to work most.